Hi, my name is Jesse Correll, and I would love to talk to you about my new record, Inner Shibori. It's a 13-song record kind of centered around the metaphor of shibori, which is this traditional Japanese tie-dye technique or fabric dyeing technique using natural indigo. So you take silk, for example, fold it, stitch it, kind of wrap it in rope or twist it, otherwise bind it in some way. You dip the fabric into indigo, and the fabric goes from being this white fabric to eventually yellow to green to eventually blue. And as that starts to dry and transform the fabric, you unbind it, unstitch it, unblock it, and it becomes this kaleidoscopic pattern throughout the fabric. And each time you do it, it's different. Each pattern is different, and it's beautiful. I was really struck by that, again, as the metaphor for the whole record. And so I talk about the record being kind of a breakup record. It's like a breakup record if I was breaking up with myself or my past self, which I know sounds, maybe that's heavy, but it's really, the record itself is beautifully balanced between the light and the dark of that whole topic. And it spans genres from Americana to jazz to folk to soul. Really American music in total, and its beautiful spectrum. So I moved to Nashville from New York in 2015, and I was immediately struck by the songwriting community here, how songwriting is just different here. There's just more of a discipline, and it's also, like I said, a tight-knit community. So I went from songwriting being this very individual process to being part of a group, several groups actually, but one of them called the East Nashville Song Salon, which is more of like a critique circle. So you'd bring brand new songs that you wrote that week, and every week you'd come, you'd share it, play it live, and immediately get feedback. So there's kind of brutal, there's some brutality to that, but it's also beautiful. It's like I said, it instills this sense of community. And so songwriting became this thing that where I used to wait for inspiration, it now became a discipline. It became a thing where I started using prompts. Most of the songs from the record came from a prompted word or phrase. And then just kind of seeing where that prompt led versus just inspiration in general. So that's really the change from my last record to this record, is how I approach songwriting in general. And so through that community, I ended up with around 50 songs. And I got to a point where I realized I needed to do something with all of these new songs, this new way of songwriting. So I approached Anne McHugh, who produced this record with me. She's a wonderful singer-songwriter. She's a DJ, filmmaker, videographer, kind of a woman of all talents, all of them, and a wonderful person. I didn't really know her that well. I'd seen her play several times in East Nashville. But I approached her and I said, I gave her around 30 songs and said, I'd love to make a record with you. And she graciously said yes. She helped me cull down the list to 13 songs that would become the record. We put a band together and kind of really thoughtfully thought through each instrument, kind of pulling from different genres to see what that would do in the studio, to really create a new kind of sound. And we were fortunate enough that everyone we approached said yes. And we recorded the record over 3 days in late 2019 in a studio called Skinny Elephant in East Nashville, which is a really great, small, intimate studio, but loved every minute of making the record there. So we made the record in 2019, and spilled into 2020, we started doing overdubs with string sections and background singers and solo instruments, etc. And of course, you're probably way ahead of me. The things changed in 2020. So the process went from doing overdubs in a studio in East Nashville to kind of finishing up some pieces individually from people self-recording. But the record is just this kind of outpouring of so many talents and so many skills of the community here in East Nashville, and so proud of that. So enter Shibori. It's available in February 2022. I hope you check it out, and thank you so much for allowing me a moment to tell you about my new record. Thanks.